Good morning. Welcome to Counterpoints. Emily, you broke?
Liberated is the word you're looking for. How liberated are you today?
I'm not retiring for a while, ever. So
Yeah.
I'm not even going to look.
So on a scale of 1 to 10, you're very liberated.
Quite liberated.
Like full French Revolution.
L Day.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really celebrated L Day, that's for sure. There's going to be another L Day today, probably.
Yeah, we're taking our Ls.
And we're going to talk about this in a moment. China just announced that it is retaliating against the American tariffs. Donald Trump's plan was he was going to put tariffs on the entire world and then warn them not to retaliate.
Yes.
He does not. I don't know if he had a plan B. I hope he does, because plan A did not work. The world is retaliating. We'll talk a little bit about that. There's full-blown warfare inside the Trump administration. Although it's funny because it's like, do David Sachs and Elon Musk, like, do they count as the administration? You know, in the old days, you knew who the senior government officials were, and if they were out on cable attacking each other, then you had, you know, staffer on staffer violence. David Sachs is the crypto czar for the White House. Elon Musk was the co-president and sort of running Doge, but not running Doge, a special government employee. But is he a government employee, or has Trump kicked him out, or is he actually still running things and he's going to fire hundreds of thousands of people over the next several months? It's not totally clear. So does that count as an administration official criticizing another one? I don't even know.
Technically, yes.
Because the membrane between what is the administration and what is the oligarch class is just so thin that they just move right in and out of it. Whatever. In any event, Musk thinks Navarro's a moron. We're going to talk more about that. The Supreme Court, a little bit of a victory, sort of,
yeah,
you know, so far for the Trump administration's effort to keep these probationary employees that they fired from being hired back, except for the ones they need to hire back because they accidentally fired them.
Yep. And these people's jobs just keep ping-ponging through the court system.
Utterly absurd.
Yep.
Not efficient.
And so then, Ryan, you've, on Capitol Hill right now, Republicans are actually raging against Donald Trump's budget, his one big, beautiful bill. He met with some of them last night, and they are still not super pleased. But
he can only lose 3, right?
He can only lose 3, and Freedom Caucus, at least as of yesterday, was saying he might lose up towards a dozen.
They always say that, but we'll get into it.
Yeah, we'll get into that. And then, Ryan, you have a guest for us.
Yes, Congressman DeLuzio from Pittsburgh, Rust Belt Democrat. He has really been making a lot of Democrats angry. By not just completely towing the party line that Trump bad, therefore tariffs bad, and Trump's tariff plan, obviously dumb, therefore all tariffs are dumb.
Right.
He's trying to find a middle ground where he's saying, no, like, actually we do need some industrial policy. And it's got a lot of people mad at him. So this is a refuge for those kinds of people.
This is well said. We will talk to him all about that. Drop site scoop as of this morning also.
Yes, so Hamas filed with a lawyer in the UK, a 100-plus page brief to demand that the UK delist it from its terror designation. And so we're going to go through some of the pleading, because it's an absolutely fascinating document, no matter where you stand on the question, because they talk about anti-Semitism, they talk about the role of Zionism in Israel. They talk about what their position is when it comes to a future settlement in the region, and they make a straightforward argument that we do not belong on this terror list, and here's why.
Yeah, that'll be pretty interesting to go through.
Yeah, it's an interesting indication of the way that Hamas is increasingly relating to Western institutions. Yeah. In a way that where it used to be more standoffish and consider all of them to be considered all of them to be just enemies.
Ryan, you had a really interesting conversation with Naomi Klein. I'm excited for everyone to see, and we'll talk about it a little bit as well, but Ryan sat down with Naomi Klein yesterday, actually, to get, I mean, it's interesting because I think her work was really formative for you back in late 90s, early 2000s, sure, yeah. For many, many, many people.
Yeah, Naomi Klein was the man back then. And, you know, 90s, we still had a bit of a monoculture. And so, and she was, I mean, she still is a very big name, obviously, in spaces and in journalism in general. But in the 90s, she was almost hegemonic when it came to representing the anti-globalization side of the debate over the post-Soviet Union world order, and so it was your idea, and I thought it was a really good one, to get her take on this wild arc from Seattle to Trump, and because you've got some people on the right being like, "Ha, you guys got what you wanted. Now look."
Yeah.
And there was this line that said, one of the chants in Seattle was another world is possible. Like, well, hey, here's another world. But look, we didn't mean all other worlds are better. Like, we always acknowledged things could get worse.
Yes.
And it does appear that was always going to be the better bet. Things getting worse is always the most likely outcome.
I had a chance to watch the interview.
So it's not an own that that's what's happening.
People should, I had a chance to watch the interview, and it's really, really interesting through that lens. So, exciting segment. Stay tuned for that. Let's jump into
She couldn't do it this morning. She lives in Canada on the West Coast, so.
Right.
That's like 6 a.m. for her.
That would be absurd. That would be unkind. But globalization, Zoom, pre-recorded. Yeah. Let's jump into the A block. China is now retaliating. Retaliatory tariffs is day zero. We can put it up on the screen. This was announced last night, early this morning. It's been developing. They've slapped retaliatory tariffs of 84% on U.S. goods in response to Trump. Some takeaways just from the CNBC breakdown here. They said this is a rise from 84% to 34%. It is starting on April 10th. And we export about $144 billion worth of goods to China. That's as of 2024. So obviously, this is very significant. This is a statement from Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent on Wednesday after this announcement. He said, "I think it's unfortunate that the Chinese actually don't want to come and negotiate because they are the worst offenders in the international trading system. They have the most imbalanced economy in the history of the modern world. And I can tell you this escalation is a loser for them." Ryan, you made an interesting point as we were opening up here that this is what Trump said everyone can't do. This is America has the upper hand, and you see a little bit of that in Bessent's statement that the United States has the upper hand. And so if you want to retaliate, you're going to get something so much worse that it's probably worth you coming to the table. I think that's probably an argument he's going to find to be a winner with the EU, with Australia, with Japan. I don't know that he probably had high hopes for China, but he probably had some hopes for China.
I guess I don't know. I've kind of given up trying to get into this guy's head at this point.
It's a good approach.
China has spent the last 20 years building up its manufacturing capacity, its capital markets as well, its supply chains, its ability to operate distinct from the United States. Like we can't live without them. They can live without us. We start a trade war with them. Like at that point, it's like, all right, what are we even like? What's the point of even analyzing any of this? Like they're just going to whoop us, and like they have all the things that we need for our manufacturing capacity. There's an article in one of these clean tech trade publications that talked about how just a few days ago they added export license requirements to a bunch of things I've never even heard of: dysprosium, terbium, tungsten, that one I've heard of, indium, yttrium, a bunch of others. These are the rare earth minerals that they produce, that they export to us for us to use to complete the assembly of automobiles, electric vehicles, solar panels, all the things of the modern economy. Like they have the productive capacity to produce it.
Hippies like you prevent us from mining here.
Hey, you mine it all you want. Go ahead, go for it.
Well, no, I mean,
we don't have it yet from Ukraine.
It's an important distinction with China.
And Ukraine lied. They don't even have a bunch of that stuff.
The distinction with China, I think, though, is important. Like the reason that they just go completely pedal to the metal on a lot of this stuff, including labor costs. I mean, it's one of the most important contrasts is that it's been. I mean, the way that they have built up their industrial capacity is, the way we built up our industrial capacity wasn't all sunsets and roses, was not great. What they've done is also really, really, really not great and is still happening under our noses to some extent.
Right, and now they've done it. Like, they're ready for this and we're not. They're smart. We're not. They have the world with them.
Smart.
We've lost the entire world.
Smart
as in like smart as in like they have a meritocracy. Like the people who are the most talented at economic policy rise up in the ranks in China. We have Peter Navarro, like Elon Musk.
How
and
dare
you're
you.
not listening to Elon Musk and Wharton graduate Donald Trump.
Yes.
We're not sending our best into this battle.
Speaking of Wharton's finest, Donald Trump last night was at the National Republican Congressional Committee's dinner here in Washington, D.C., and he talked about some of this. Again, this is just from the last 12 hours, so let's take a listen to President Trump.
If we follow through on this agenda, we will be rewarded with a phenomenal economy and a massive victory at the ballot box in 2026, because we will have a record of triumph like no president has ever had, like no Congress has ever had. They will not be able to even touch your seat. Your seat is secure, and we'll pick up 40, 50, or even 60 seats, and we'll have something that's going to be smooth sailing for years to come. If we don't get it done because of stupidity or a couple of people that want to show how great they are, you just have to laugh at them or smile at them or cry right in their face. And this is the largest transaction in the history of our country. And don't let some of these politicians go around saying, because I'm telling you, these countries are calling us up, kissing my ass. They are dying to make a deal. Please, sir, make a deal. I'll do anything. I'll do anything, sir. Being criticized because the globalists will go after you. For 7 decades, American ships have patrolled the seas. American troops have kept the pace and peace. And American wealth has enriched the globe. But despite all we have given to them, you will not find an American car in Berlin, in Tokyo, in Seoul, in Shanghai, not a car. Beautiful guys. I didn't want to have any arm wrestling contests with any of them, I can tell you that. They're good, strong guys. That's what they want to do. They love to dig coal. That's what they want to do. They don't want to do gadgets and widgets and wadgets. They don't want to build cell phones with their hands, their big, strong hands, doing a little thing. Remember when Hillary Clinton went to West Virginia? And she had decimated them 3 weeks before in, like, some state where they make little tiny circuit boards.
The gadgets and the wadgets and their big, strong hands.
This guy's mentally ill.
Even for Trump, that was a hell of a riff.
The guy's just...
He's talking about the big, strong hands like hours before the tariffs actually went into effect. And obviously that's the reality that we've woken up to this morning. We're filming this before markets have opened.
It makes me think of all of these, when you read through history and there are periods of time where people had a mad king and you're like, God, that must have sucked. Like literally a mad king, not like a king where like,
he's like riddled with syphilis.
You disagree with him on this issue, but this is the king's prerogative at this moment. Like an absolute mad king. Where he's just nuts. I think this guy's lost it. This guy's nuts.
Well, you say
he's
lost
gonna win,
it.
He's going to win 50 seats. Are you insane?
Yes.
Like
yes.
you are on the cusp of a financial crisis that you have sparked for no reason. You're going to go down as like the worst president in American history if you continue with this. And you're not going to touch us. We're going to win 50 seats.
Well, so that's if you continue with this, is I was going to say $1 million question, but multi-trillion-dollar question.
Hey, she shows no signs of backing down.
So I want to get into all of that after we roll through some of what else happened yesterday, because Jameson Greer was testifying in front of the Senate, and Andrew Ross Sorkin, we'll start with this is going to be A2, made quite an interesting point on CNBC yesterday that I think we'll probably learn more about like a year or two from now. So let's roll Andrew Ross Sorkin.
Given what the government's been doing and this administration's been doing, it would not shock me, and I hate to speculate, if we were to find out that a whole bunch of people who work in Washington as our elected leaders, one way or the other, ultimately sold stocks last week, or potentially worse than that, shorted the market.
Okay, so Ryan, they don't have to disclose this. What is it, 30 days? They're supposed to disclose their trades.
Washington, I think something like that for the executive,
Right, yeah. They're supposed to, this came out of the Stock Act was 2012, after there were revelations about Nancy Pelosi. they passed this saying that they would disclose their trades within
And John Boehner.
John Boehner within 30 days. And so we have no idea.
Oh, and what's his name? Spencer
Baucus? Yeah.
Was the Financial Services Chairman or ranking member on the Financial Services Committee, came out of the meeting with Bernanke and Hank Paulson in 2007 when they told him, like, hey, this thing is about to go down. He walked out of the meeting and sold his stocks. And that one in particular rattled the public to a point where they're like, all right, you need to do something about it. And Congress was like, sure, we'll let you know what we're doing after we do it, but we're not going to stop doing it.
Yeah, and by the way, if we don't disclose it,
it's no big deal.
It's not that big of a deal. It's fine.
We'll tell you later.
Get over it.
I'll tell you later.
Right. Okay, so that's just something to keep in mind. Obviously, people could be shorting the market. They could be doing all kinds of things. A lot of times the way that members do this is they say that their wife was trading or their husband was trading, or they have a really flimsy excuse and say, my broker does all of this. It's not a blind trust.
I don't even know if members of Congress are the issue here. It's more the White House and
people in the White House, potentially. Right. Let's put A3 up on the screen. This is from David Sachs. I think we have this here. Black Monday hoax is over. This is a post from Crypto Czar David Sachs. And then there was a community note, and I say was because if you go to this tweet, there is no longer this note. Readers added context they thought people might want to know. As of 3:45 Eastern the same day this tweet was written, the S&P is down 2.6% for the day, erasing overnight gains, and down about 6%.
So he posted this in the morning?
6% from when the tweet was written.
Right.
Yeah, and so now if you go to this post, actually he added an additional tweet to the thread. He said, after wrongly predicting a crash yesterday, some people are gloating, this is around 6 p.m. yesterday, because the Dow Jones Industrial Average closed down 0.84% today on the real Black Monday. The DJIA plunged by 22.6. People use these terms without having a clue what they mean. He is right about that.
So, and what he's talking about is that throughout the day there was a bounce like that, and the markets were actually up for a while, and there was some hope that maybe the countries wouldn't retaliate very quickly, and that Trump might revisit this, and it was the same false hope that led them to kind of, run up the market in January and February, and then when it became clear that no, this guy's dug in on this thing. And China is going to retaliate, then the market crashed again.
So, and we still don't know how it's going to open today, of course, but Jameson Greer was testifying before the Senate yesterday and got some genuinely very tough questions from Democrats, no surprise there. But Ryan, some interesting questions from Democrats that we wanted to roll through as well. So let's go. This is questions from Mark Warner, a question from Tom Tillis, obviously a sort of establishment Republican, and then we'll have other clips to get through with Jameson Greer as well. He is the U.S. Trade Representative, so he's basically the guy in the office who's tasked with managing the U.S.'s trade relationships across the world. So a hell of a time to be Jameson Greer. He is very much of this kind of new right world, very much on board with this agenda. He's not being forced to be in this situation. He's a kind of true believer in restructuring these global trade relationships. So let's go ahead and roll A4 here.
We already have a free trade agreement. We have a trade surplus. So getting the least bad, why did they get whacked in the first place?
We're addressing the $1.2 trillion deficit, the largest in human history that President Biden left us with. We should be running up the score in Australia.
Ambassador Greer, answer the question on Australia. We have a trade surplus with Australia. We have a free trade agreement. Why? They are an incredibly important national security partner. Why were they whacked with a tariff?
Senator, despite the agreement, they ban our beef, they ban our pork, they're getting ready to impose measures on our digital companies.
With your Greek letter formula, the fact that we have a trade surplus.
We have a global tariff on everywhere. We're trying to address the $1.2 trillion deficit that Biden left us with.
I think that answer, sir, you're a much smarter person than that answer.
I'm assuming this all got gamed out because it's a novel approach. It needed to be thought out. Whose throat do I get to choke if this proves to be wrong?
Well, Senator, you can certainly always talk to me, but
are you at the tip of the spear?
Well, I'm at the tip of the spear.
some interesting insight into how Republicans are thinking about all of this, which is who do I get to blame if it all blows up in our face? And that if is huge.
And Mark Warner is asking a reasonable question, but he's asking it into a completely unreasonable environment. Like and I don't normally defend Mark Warner, but he's an insane person in an insane asylum. He's like, and so I get why he's yelling. He's like, guys, you said that if we have a trade deficit with a country, then ipso facto, they have trade barriers against us, and then we're going to screw them. Australia, we have a trade surplus with them. So what is your problem? And it's just talking points.
Well, I think that's interesting because, soccer. If soccer were here, he would be going through the roof because the beef is one of the things.
Really bothered by the beef.
It's insane. We are pushing the beef exports, our like hormone-laden beef exports on other countries and expecting them to just take it. But I think we have another clip here actually that'll be helpful too. This is Senate Finance Committee. So same committee that you've been hearing
from. Why would
we
ship a cow all the way to Australia, by the way? What kind of global system is that? Nobody around here needs to eat beef?
Our food system is so insane. I mean, we don't have to open up that Pandora's box, but...
You know how heavy a cow is?
I don't know.
Really heavy.
How much could a banana cost, Michael? $10. Here is Senator Bennett talking to Jameson Greer. We can roll this next clip.
I understand your position is that the long-term gain is worth the short-term pain, but what is that short-term pain going to look like?
So Senator, I think we can look at, I think we should look at history and data for this. It's hard to project what's going to happen with prices, but we know in the first Trump term, the president imposed historic tariffs on China on an enormous amount of goods coming from China. And during that time, inflation went down. And the data shows it's not one-to-one.
I know you're smart enough to know that the likelihood is that prices are going to go up for the American people as a result of the tariffs that you put in place. Do you disagree with that?
Oh,
I mean, when you say that in your testimony that you expect the American people will bear the burden, or that, and I'm sure they will bear any burden on some level. But what do you think that burden is actually going to look like?
Well, I think the challenges, frankly, are going to be more for companies that are largely dependent on imports from China and Asia, where they have to adjust their supply chains in a quick set of time.
Ryan, you're laughing. I'm just going to toss right to you.
Well, that's great news. So these tariffs are only going to be a problem for companies that have, global entanglements in their supply chains. That's good. I'm glad to hear that. Let me check which company. Oh, that's all of the companies.
It's everyone.
That's every company. Okay. Well, I guess we're back to square one with that. On your point, by the way, on Dow futures, based on this China news that we opened with. Dow, NASDAQ, S&P all down about 2%. But here's the good news. As your wealth shrinks every day, as a country and as a person, when you lose 2% every day, you're actually losing just a little bit less in absolute numbers.
Okay.
So there is really a light at the end of the tunnel.
Well, let's put this...
And it's a big zero.
Well, so as to how long this goes on, let's put this Caitlin Huey-Burns post. This is the next element.
Yeah, if you have nothing and the Dow crashes 2%, you didn't lose a thing.
You will own nothing and you will be happy.
Wow. Genius.
Caitlin Huey-Burns says she asked Scott Bessent on the Hill yesterday whether the tariffs going into effect tomorrow, so they are in effect right now, are set in stone or a negotiating tactic. And Bessent replied, quote, "They are negotiable, but not a negotiating tactic." There's a lot to get into with that.
I'm with Bessent on this one. Let me stand up for Bessent here.
Stand up for Bessent.
I get what he's saying there. He's saying, look, all right, the tariff is 15% or it's 85% on Lesotho. Maybe it could be 75. Like the number is negotiable.
Yes.
But the idea that we are putting forward, that we are going to break the back of the global trading system and create something new in its place, that's not negotiable. That's what he's saying.
Yeah.
But we don't believe him because, Trump in that speech was like, they're all begging me for a deal, and he's going to make some deals, and I think he's eventually going to have to either back off this or be forced off of it, because you can't break the global system as one person without. Or we just have no system left.
I mean, you can break the global system, but...
I mean, he's breaking it. What I mean is that, at some point, Republicans have to step in. I mean, they would need 67 votes to override his veto.
Yeah.
But, you keep shaving 2-3% off every single day.
So
like there's gonna that pressure's gonna build.
So here's where
People spent too long building up. People spent their entire lives building up what they have. And I don't think they're going to let this mentally ill guy just take it away. Maybe they will, though.
Well, so Politico, I think this was in Playbook the other day, was talking about how the incentive for Republicans, this is the implication, I'm paraphrasing it, right now, is they know their voters trust Donald Trump. Republican voters trust Donald Trump. That trust may chip away, but right now Republican voters trust Donald Trump more than they trust his opponents when it comes to, I mean, his numbers, Harry Enton has pointed this out, we'll get to it. His numbers on the economy are slipping, but Republican voters have confidence in Donald Trump to the extent that it means they trust him more than other people.
Yeah.
And so if the choice is Donald Trump or someone who opposes Donald Trump's approach.
We'll talk about this polling more in a minute, but here's a good one for it that backs up your point. YouGov asked, April 2nd will forever be remembered as the day American history was reborn, the day America's destiny was reclaimed, and the day that we began to make America wealthy again. Do you agree or disagree with that following statement regarding tariffs? Republicans, by 70-14, either strongly or somewhat agree with that. Independents, 51% of independents disagree with that, 41% strongly agree, disagree. Obviously, Democrats are like spitting, did a spit take to that one. And so, overall, the country does not agree with that statement, but Republicans still do.
Yeah, and so I just think this is important because, I think Trump's tactics, and this is a question we'll have that I'll definitely have for the congressman later. I think Trump's tactics are completely bananas. There's no disagreement on that. I think a lot of voters make the calculus that it's between these banana tactics or the status quo, which is shocking levels of debt and deficit raising under the Biden administration. If you look at the chart, just the skyrocketing. It wasn't just Biden, but after COVID, Trump contributed to that as well. It was just crazy levels. And people feel like that contributed to inflation. And they look at the establishment and status quo, and then they look at Donald Trump, and they look at, for example, China's, they look at China, they look at different places in the world, and they say, this is unfair. Trump taps into that. And the response, it's not persuasive. The opponents of Donald Trump, for a lot of Republican voters, it's not persuasive. And so I think also there's a genuine question as to whether, and this speaks poorly to our politics, you have Jamison Greer, who I think was a pretty capable defender of a weird process, a bad process that is policy in and of itself. But did you see how the Walter Bloomberg tweet shifted the market yesterday, or day before yesterday?
Yeah.
It was the craziest thing in the world. Predictable, but insane. And I think part of what may happen here, I'm not saying it will happen, but I'm saying there is still a possibility that we see a shift. Trump pulls back probably a month from now. I shouldn't say probably, but let's just say hypothetically a month from now, a few weeks from now, Trump pulls back. There was a shock for a long time, and then markets go back up. And we see companies having, maybe there are significant layoffs, maybe there are jobs brought back in. That's what we see right now is this push and pull, big Stellantis temporary layoffs, and then the Honda Civic manufacturing coming back to Indiana, for example. And I don't want to discount the possibility that this is better in the long run than the status quo. I'm not saying it's the possibility. I'm not saying it's the thing that's actually going to happen, but I still think that we have no idea where Trump stops. And I don't think he has any idea where he stops. So I think a lot of voters are probably making that calculus too. I think that's what allows him politically to keep stringing Republicans along with it. But that's not going to last forever. I mean, I think you can get away with that for another 2 to 3 weeks, maximum.
The problem with Trump's approach here, besides the approach, is the sudden nature of it and the way that it has struck fear in everybody. So even if he was completely right about the fact that you need to put these blanket tariffs on everybody, including Canada and Australia and all, which he's not, but let's say he was, doing it the way he did it without getting buy-in from Wall Street, from union, well, he got some buy-in from some unions, from some members of the Democratic Party, has meant that there's this fear among the public that we're going to have a recession.
Yeah.
And these are self-fulfilling situations in an economy like ours that is based so heavily on consumer spending and business investment. So if you are a business now, you're not hiring. You're probably laying off and trying to build up your cash reserves to the extent that you can. If you're a consumer, you're out. You might actually be out there trying to buy that dishwasher that you've needed before it doubles in price. But in general, you're not spending money. And in fact, this poll said that 1 out of 5 people were considering a quick purchase because of the looming tariffs.
Yeah.
And so, like, that could give a little sugar high. It said another 1 in 5 were stopping purchases because of them. But the overall economy means people aren't going to spend. And so then now all these businesses that rely on anything going on overseas are going to start getting hit with duties.
Yeah.
And in order to pay this tariff, you need cash. You haven't sold your product yet. This whole thing we've got here relies on cash flow and credit. You can't really throw in oh, by the way, you owe an extra 20% right now.
And it still will.
Whoa, I don't have that. I have exactly what I need to make it. Like, everyone's just gasping for air.
When these China tariffs we started talking about are a 50% increase, like 34 to 84% increase. And I'll skip ahead to A10 here and put this element up on the screen. The Wall Street Journal reported on a survey the Chamber of Commerce did, which was very, very interesting. It said most businesses were still, or many businesses were still planning to keep their financial entanglements with China. Interestingly, this survey also saw many of those companies see China as like the biggest geopolitical risk. And that's the line that Donald Trump is towing between saying, hey, you see China as a risk, so bet on the United States. The problem with that is the tactic here has created uncertainty. Donald Trump sees the uncertainty as his leverage to get people to bet on the U.S. But that uncertainty is precisely why people are just being risk averse and not taking risks at all. So maybe this retaliatory tariff changes the calculus for some of those companies in the survey. This was obviously taken before, but I mean, it's very, very hard. The possibility that it just laid out is just that. It's a possibility. I think it's a possibility that's not being treated as serious as it should be in the media.
But who's financing that? Like the major companies are not. They don't expect Trump's tariffs to be here 4 years from now.
Yeah.
So they would have no reason to build a plant. He hates the CHIPS Act. He hates industrial policy from the top down. So
it's a huge problem.
So then, who's right? Who's financing these projects? You just had Microsoft. You saw this announce their $1 billion 3 data centers in Ohio. That they're pulling out of those. So the conditions aren't, just the economic conditions aren't right for it.
Yeah.
Not good timing for that. So who? Just theoretically, who's betting? Who would lead this renaissance? Who's putting their chips in on the U.S. here?
Yeah, Greer laid out the case that he thinks that plenty of they pointed to the Honda Civic, and what's the other one that they've pointed to so far? They have a couple of things that have happened just in the last week or so, but certainly are offset by Stellantis, by Microsoft, and by some of these other negative effects as well. So it's pretty hard to make the case that it's that there's some objective metric by which it's clearly already a roaring win.
Yeah, and why would a company bet on us over China, given their education system compared to ours, their manufacturing capacity compared to ours, their supply chain access compared to ours, their stability in leadership compared to ours. Our
good old authoritarian stability.
We're a basket case. We have authoritarianism, but instability. We're rounding people up and throwing them in gulags, but we can't even get a stable system.
Is it? I don't,
What's the point of the gulags?
are you talking about the
to make sure we
Salvadoran
can't
ones?
criticize Israel.
Which gulags are you talking about? There are a couple going on right
the
now.
Salvadoran ones, but also
There's,
the detention centers all around the U.S. where students are being rounded up for op-eds and participating in protests and sent to.
Hey, if you liked that video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to Breaking Points.
If you want to see the rest of Counterpoints, go to breakingpoints.com to become a premium member and get the full uncut show every morning in your inbox and on Spotify.